Hi everyone, my name is Jasmine Rastogi, and I'll be the moderator for today's webinar, Data Analysis Made Easy with Power BI. Jose Chinchilla, AgileThought's Data Analytics Lead, will be today's presenter. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to join us. We're really excited to introduce Power BI and show you how beneficial it can be to your business. By the end of our presentation, you should have a practical understanding of how to use Power BI for instant reporting and data analytics. Before we begin, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. 1. If you have any questions during the webinar, type them in the question tab, which should be on the right side of your webinar window. We'll come back to them at the end. 2. Today we'll select 3 lucky winners at random to receive a complimentary 30-minute phone consult with Jose. This is a great opportunity to connect with Jose and dive even deeper into Power BI. And 3, we also have a special Power BI Ignite offer only for the attendees of this webinar. We'll send you more details after the webinar. So before we dive in, let me tell you a little bit about who we are. AgileThought is a custom software development and consulting firm. We help our Fortune 1000 clients successfully deliver on their toughest development projects and solve their process issues. Visit agilethough.com/results to learn more about us and see what our clients say about working with us. And now, our presenter. Jose Chinchilla is a data analytics practice lead at AgileThought and a Microsoft certified solutions expert in database administration and BI development. He has over 16 years of experience architecting data analytics projects across many industries in large-scale solutions. Jose is also an author and frequent speaker at technical community events. So without further ado, here's Jose.
All right, thanks, Jasmine, and welcome everyone. I'm very happy to deliver this webinar today. You can network with me if you're interested in having a conversation about Power BI, and also if you have any other inquiries about data analytics in general. You can reach to me via email, via LinkedIn, or via Twitter. Go by the handle SQL Joe. And you can also network with me at some of the upcoming events, such as SQL Saturday in Atlanta and Orlando. I encourage you to register and attend those type of events because you get a lot of good knowledge out of them. So you have any questions, any feedback, feel free to contact me. I'll be happy to chat with you. So let's get started. So today we are going to do an overview of Power BI. We're going to review some of the main features, some of the basic concepts that make up the Power BI ecosystem. And then we're going to do a hands-on demonstration of Power BI Desktop. And for the demo, I prepared just an analysis using revenue data and also some of the information from the Wide World Importers database, which is a fictitious company that Microsoft created and makes available this sample database through GitHub. So you can download this database as well if you are interested in playing with some of this data. So on the way, we're going to learn how to shape and transform data with Power BI Desktop. We're going to develop a couple of interactive reports. We're going to do a very simple DAX formula. We're going to show you how to deploy reports to the Power BI service and how to create a dashboard from these reports. So before we get started, we have a couple of poll questions that we wanted to run by our audience today. So Jasmine, would you be able to open that poll question now?
Absolutely. All right, I'm going to launch the question right now. And the question is, are you currently implementing or planning to implement Power BI in your organization? So if you could just take a moment to answer the question, and we will be right back with you with the results. Let's give you a few more seconds here. And let's see what everyone said. So I'm going to share the results now. All right, and it looks like 73% of you answered yes and 27% answered no.
All right, excellent, thanks for that. So it seems like it's a common trend that we see now in the market even among our clients, they're in the process of implementing Power BI, or at least in the planning stages. And a lot of that is due because of the low cost of ownership, the licensing mode, and also because of the interactivity and ease of development. So I think Power BI, as Gartner has shown in some of their Magic Quadrants, it's the leader in the BI space. And it's a common trend nowadays. A lot of organizations adopting Power BI more and more, both for ad hoc type of reporting, but also for the enterprise reporting as well. So with that, let's get started with what is Power BI. So Power BI, it's commonly referred to as a tool, but it actually is a suite of tools. It's a complete ecosystem. The main application within that suite is the Power BI desktop. This is a application that you can download from powerbi.com or the Microsoft Store, and in which you develop your reports, create datasets, queries. You create some of the Power Query type of scripts, and also you can create some of the DAX formulas for your analytics. In addition to that, we have a Power BI mobile app, and this is a phone application that you can download from the Apple Store or Android Store, depending on your platform. And you can essentially consume all the reports and dashboards as if you were interacting with them on your desktop. So you have the very similar user experience. You have some of the gestures and some of the interactivity available as well within the mobile application. The great thing about the mobile app is that anything you develop in Power BI desktop or through the Power BI service, you can adapt the layout to the mobile for the mobile application, reutilizing the same visualization, the same data sets without having to create new visualization specifically for the mobile app. So this is a great feature within the Power BI suite. So in addition to that, we have what's called the Power BI service. And what the Power BI service is essentially a software as a service. It's a cloud-based or Azure-based portal where you deploy your reports and data sets. This could be considered sort of like your report server in the cloud, right? But it is named as a Power BI service. In addition to that, Microsoft made available the on-premise version, which is called the Power BI Report Server. And this is essentially the latest version or an upgraded version of SQL Server reporting services. If you're familiar with reporting services, it's essentially a service that runs on a server on-premise in which you can deploy reports. With the Power BI Report Server, you can deploy Power BI reports, also known as modern reports. And you can also deploy reporting services reports, or also known as paginated reports. So now you can have both reporting services reports and Power BI reports in a single report server known as the Power BI Report Server. Just as a side note, there's two capacity models in which you can license the Power BI service. One of them is the shared capacity, and the other one is the dedicated capacity. Shared capacity, essentially you are sharing the infrastructure and the horsepower behind the scenes with the other customers in Power BI. And by that I mean you're just sharing the horsepower. You're not sharing your data, right? Your data remains secure and only available for those who have entitlement to those data sets. You can license those that shared capacity through the free service. Essentially, it's a personal BI. You don't pay anything. There's some limitations. And then you have the Pro subscription, which is has more features than the free service, such as more sharing and collaboration options, for example. The dedicated capacity model, you can license that through either a premium and or embedded type of subscription. And with this, you choose the number of nodes, the amount of memory, the amount of CPUs available for your Power BI assets in the cloud. So shared capacity versus dedicated capacity, it's how you license a Power BI service in the cloud. In terms of the Power BI report server, the on-premise version, you can license that. If you're already paying for a premium cloud subscription, you are entitled to also download and install Power BI report server on-premise. So you can have both Power BI on-premise and in the cloud. Perhaps this could be a good strategy if you want to have very sensitive data within your organization in Power BI report server, and only less sensitive data perhaps in the Power BI service cloud, right? In addition to the Power BI premium subscription, you can also license Power BI report server if you have an existing SQL Server Enterprise 2016 or newer, in this case 2016 or 2017, with software assurance. So if you're an enterprise client that have software assurance, you may already be entitled to install Power BI report server on premise. So some of the main features about Power BI. So there are many features. I'm not going to go through all of them, but the key feature that I want to highlight here is the number of native connectors that are available out of the box with Power BI, in which you can extract or ingest data from file type of data sources, database, web, of course, Azure services, and other specific or proprietary connectors available as well. There's a zero-code cross-platform development experience. So essentially, it's pure drag and drop. You don't have to code anything. You don't have to write any code at all. You can do all that by clicking and interacting with the dataset through a graphical user interface. And of course, cross-platform, because the same report that you make available for your desktop can be made available for mobile as well. And the third in priority, in my opinion, is the secure sharing and collaboration. So once you create these great reports, you want to share with the rest of your organization, you have a very secure platform to do that with the Power BI report server on-premise or Power BI service in the cloud. There's many other main features that you can go over once we make this slide deck available. But you can find a lot of these features as well highlighted in the powerbi.com website, which I encourage you to visit. All right. So I made a cloud graphic from all the different features that I captured from the website. And of course, you can see some of the ones that stand up a lot, such as integration, collaboration, analytical, cross-platform, Cortana, which is down here, which allows you to do natural language processing within Power BI. Then data shaping as well. All right, so let's talk about the Power BI basics. So when we're talking about data sets, we're talking about the data that we're pulling from the different sources. This could be SQL Server databases, analysis services cubes, Excel spreadsheets, comma separated value files, etc. From these data sources, you create data sets, which is what you see here in the middle, and they're represented in Power BI as tables. Within this, from these tables, you can create reports, either from one or many tables. And from these reports, you can pin some of the visualizations into your dashboard. So on the right-hand side, you have a dashboard that is made up of visualizations coming from 2 reports, which in turn are coming from 3 different sources. So that's kind of the basics of a dataset, report, and dashboard. In terms of connection modes, so there are 2 main connection modes and one new one that was just made available. It's still in preview. The first one is import mode. And import mode is essentially, as the word implies, you're importing all the data from your data source. So either from SQL tables, from Excel file, from a web service, from a CSV file, etc. And you're importing this into the internal storage of Power BI. The second one is direct query, or also known as live connection. And these are specific sources that are supported, in which the data is not imported into Power BI, but is rather passed through into the data source at the time of the query time. So what I mean by that is, when there's a visualization that selects X information from a table, that data still resides in the source, and only the result from the query needed to satisfy that visualization is sent over to Power BI and added into its cache. So the data is essentially real time, because as soon as that visualization is refreshed or there's an interaction, the query is executed again, and then the live data is brought back. And these are some of the existing databases and platforms supported for direct query and live connection. Now, the third connection mode, which was just made available or announced recently, is the composite. It's still in preview mode. And essentially now, Power BI, you will be able to mix import and direct query mode. And essentially, you will have certain data sets that are import mode, and you can specify if you want to change that to import or direct query. And then you're going to have another data set as well that you can specify if you want that in direct query or import mode. So this is sort of similar to what some of you, if you're familiar with analysis services, when we had that hybrid OLAP type of partitions, where certain partitions were in caching the data, importing and caching the data, and the other partition was real time, going back to the data source to query. So now you have these two modes as well within Power BI. And it's known as the composite models or composite connections. This is just a quick representation of direct query or also live query. As you can see, the query is sent back to the database, and then the result is sent back to Power BI. No data is loaded. Only the result sets are loaded into its cache, but no data is stored within Power BI itself. The import mode, as you can see, there's an intermediate step in which data is actually loaded into Power BI's internal storage. And by internal storage, I mean physical storage, which behind the scenes uses blob storage. It's a dedicated private access. You don't have direct access to that blob storage. It's a storage account dedicated only for Power BI that uses it as a background. And then it also has cache, right? So as this data is brought as a result for some visualization, it actually is added to its cache. So whenever a query is sent over, the data is going against the Power BI cache or its Power BI storage. And until you schedule a refresh or manually refresh the data, that data becomes a point in time in data. So you have to click on that refresh button or create a schedule in order to load the latest data from the data sources. In the composite mode, which is still in preview, you actually can have both. You have certain data sets, as I mentioned, using import mode, and another data set using direct or live query. All right. Something else I wanted to mention, brought up to your attention, is the on-premise data gateway. So one of the key features of Power BI is its ability to not only consume data that's in the cloud, but also consume data that is still on-premise. And to do that, you install what's called an on-premises data gateway. It's a small service you can install on any server. And this gateway allows Power BI to go into your network and access these different sources. And these sources could be like SQL Server databases or files in a file system. So the data gateway is what you will need if you want to access on-premise data that you don't have available in the cloud. In terms of data source connectors, so as I mentioned, one of the key features of Power BI is the out-of-the-box connectors that it comes with. You can see there's over 60, or actually if you count the preview connectors, almost 70 now. So there's a wide variety of connectors, and every month or every other month, Microsoft is adding new connectors where you can access specialized services, such as Salesforce, for example, you see on the right, MailChimp for email blast, Zendesk, TeamDesk, and also some of the other specialized services like Hadoop file system, SharePoint, etc. In terms of visualizations, again, it comes with a lot of nice visualizations out of the box. And these are your common line charts, bar charts, column charts, gauges, tree maps, tables, matrices, and also mapping visualization, right? Geographic visualization. But one of the great features about Power BI is that if you want to extend your visual library, you can go into the marketplace and you will find lots of visualizations from third-party partners, but you can also create your own custom visualization and import it into Power BI. I want to take a look at that in our demo, one of these custom visualizations. All right, so right now it's a good time. If you have any questions, you can submit them, and we're gonna have dedicated time towards the end. So feel free to start sending some questions, and we'll address them in a little bit. In addition to that, we have a second poll question. This is our last poll. This is very important because we like to understand our audience, also understand the marketplace. So this helps us understand what is the current status in your reporting needs. So Jasmine, can you launch that poll, please?
I'd be happy to. All right, I'm going to launch the poll question now. And the question is, what are some of the challenges you're running into with your current reporting tool? So you can go ahead and select any of the options that apply to you. And the options are, it's no longer cost effective, it's missing features that you need, or it's difficult to develop and maintain reports. So go ahead and take a few more seconds answering that question. And looks like people are still answering, so I'm going to give you another 5 seconds or so. All right, let's see the results. So I'm closing the poll question now, and I'm going to launch the results. And there you have it. So a large majority of you are saying that it's missing features that you need, and it's becoming difficult to develop and maintain your current reports.
All right, excellent. So that is not a big surprise to me. A lot of the issues or pain points reported by most of our customers is that either their current reporting tool is not straightforward to develop, requires a lot of manipulation of the data, a lot of specific, data structures that need to be created. And also that's missing a lot of features, a lot of the nice interactivity. And one of the biggest asks is ability to have a quick, easy path for that report or dashboard for mobile BI consumption. A lot of clients, although I see that that was not what was selected in this poll, but also a lot of clients have been reporting that the licensing cost and licensing structure of some of those other reporting tools are no longer cost effective. And that's one of the reasons why they're moving to Power BI. And if you're interested in understanding that licensing, we will be happy to talk to you, after the webinar, and we can schedule some time. All right, so let's move on into our demo. So we have about 15 minutes, and we're gonna do, like I mentioned, a quick analysis on revenue based on the Wide World Importers database that Microsoft makes available, create some reports and deploy them into the Power BI service. So let's get started. So the first thing I'm gonna show you before we get started is how to download and install Power BI. So if you open your web browser, you can go to powerbi.com. And then you can see that there's an option here in the products, Power BI Desktop. And there's a link to download it for free. So once you click that button, it will download. And then you can click on installer. It's a very straightforward installation. Just a couple of buttons, next. Once you install it, then you'll be able to open that. Either if you create a shortcut on your desktop, you can actually type Power BI and it will come up as your desktop app, and then launch it. So now that's launching, the first thing that comes up is the splash screen. You can disable this here towards the bottom if you don't want that splash screen to show up. But I wanted to point out some links that are very important here, such as the tutorials. The Microsoft team has created a bunch of tutorials that show you step by step how to recreate some of the reports and dashboards that they have created for you. And then there's the blog, some forums as well, very important if you have any questions. There's a big community that will address those. And I would also encourage you to check out the What's New section and subscribe to their newsletter. Every month they're releasing new features, and they explain what features are made available and some examples of those new features, how to apply them in that newsletter, in this blog. So very important to do as well. Now, as you can see here really quick, you can see that my name is recognized here, and that is because I have already logged in using my credentials. If you want to create your own Power BI service, the free service, go to powerbi.com and then create an account, and then you'll be able to log in and be able to publish reports to your Power BI service. Now that we have the Power BI desktop open, I wanted to show you around some of these areas. So we have the visualization section. You can see this is where you can pick a visualization, and then you can add in the data that you want to display. And then next to it, you have your field section. And this is where your tables or data set will be available as you add them. In addition to that, here you have on the left your visualization view, which is or report view, which is this top icon. You have the data view, which allows you to view and browse the data and tables that you have made available. And then you have the relationships view, which you will see in a little bit once we start adding our data, how those tables relate to each other. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to import some data. So I'm going to launch Management Studio to show you where this data is coming from. And I have a local SQL Server instance running on my laptop, in which I have downloaded and attached the Worldwide Importers database, data warehouse database. So we have this Worldwide Importer DW or data warehouse database. And in this database, we have a table called fact sale. And this is the fictitious data from a company called Wide World Importers, along with some other dimensions that describe that, that process. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna jump back to Power BI Desktop, and we're gonna click on Get Data. If you take a look at the options available, we can see that we have some of the most common data sets or sources available. One of them is SQL Server. So we're gonna select that option, and we're gonna populate the server name. In this case, it's called localhost. I wanna leave the database field empty, but you can see that you can choose to import this data or do a direct query. In this case, we're gonna do import mode for our analysis. So we're gonna click OK. And we should be prompted to select which database and which table or tables do we wanna import. In this case, I wanna import my sale data. And as you can see here on the right, we have a preview of some of the rows available in our fact sale table. If I know this data really well, I can go ahead and select the dimensions or other related data that I want to select. But if this is the first time where you have, not too familiarized with this data set, you can actually click on this button, select related tables, and based on the relationships, it will actually select those related tables. So let's click on that button. And it detected that fact sale has direct relationship to these tables. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna only select the ones I'm interested at this point. So only city, I'm gonna, and then stock item. Yep. And stock item essentially products, right? The list of products they have available. So 3 tables I'm gonna load into my Power BI data set. So that will take about 5 to 10 seconds. It's going to import a couple 100,000 rows between fact, sale, dimension city, and a dimension stock item. So what's happening right now is all this data is being imported into the Power BI desktop file that we're creating. So in this case, all the data, the reports, visualizations are contained within the Power BI desktop file. Once we are done with our development, we publish this, and all this goes into the Power BI service. So let's look real quick and start interacting with some data. So we expand our fact sale table. We see that there's quantity. There's also a column called total excluding tax. We can rename this, and let's say we want to rename this to revenue. So we want to work with quantity and revenue, profit, quantity, and revenue as our main measures. So let's bring quantity here on the canvas. And as you can see, Power BI determined that maybe a bar chart is the best visualization for this type of metric. We can explore this data and give it more context and say, I want to know how much I sold over the years based on my invoice date. So I can bring my year into my axis, and really quick, I can see that data being broken down by year. But I also want to relate this information with quantity. How much I sold, what is the relationship with quantity sold versus revenue? So I'm going to actually change this chart into a line and cluster column chart. I'm going to change my quantity to my line value, and I'm going to bring my revenue into my column values. So now I can see really quick kind of the relationship with how much I sold versus how many I sold. I can add some detail. For example, I can add the data labels. I can bring this into focus mode, and I can see really quick if, that I have 2.4 million in 45 million in revenue and 2.4 million items sold, right? So this is a quick visualization that I can create just by dragging and dropping. I can give it a little bit more context. For example, not only I want to break it down by year, but maybe I want to break this down by quarter. So by bringing quarter into the axis, I can actually drill down and see the quarter over quarter analysis. I can bring year as a slicer, for example. So I can bring year and make that a slicer. And instead of in between, I can do a list, and I can change that, for example, into instead of vertical, into a horizontal slicer. So now I can look at my quarters. So I can bring this down to quarter, and I can see over time the different revenue and quantity over time. I can add a little bit more detail. For example, I can say I want to analyze my profit. How's my profit over time? And I want to do this perhaps in a area chart. And I want to bring, for example, into my axis my months. So now I can see also not only my revenue and quantity analysis, but also how my profit over the year, over the month for that particular year, right? Something very very cool about Power BI is also its geographic analysis. So as you can see here in our dimensions, we have the dimension city, which is a geography, right? So this, I'm going to bring a city into my canvas, and you can see that it automatically detects that this is a column that might be a geography type of column. So I can bring my city, and it plots all the cities I have done business or delivered or sold items to. And I can add a little bit more context and say, well, I want to know not only where I sold, but how much I sold. And I can give it sort of like a saturation with my revenue or my quantity. And I can bring this into focus mode, and perhaps I can see where I sold the most. Maybe city is too granular, so maybe we can change that to state, province. So now I can see, what regions I sell the most, and it seems like in the Northeast is where I I sell the most, right? So this is a quick analysis. Again, we can be creative and add some other type of analysis, such as perhaps revenue by sales territory. So instead of city, I want to see my revenue by sales territory. And instead of a bar chart, maybe you can do a funnel chart. So you can see the top territory where I sell the most, right? And down to the lowest. So this is a quick analysis, that we can do with SQL data. No transformations, no shaping required, just consuming the data as is. So let's assume that we want to do perhaps analysis of our products, right? So as you can see, we have our stock items, and let's see how much revenue each of these stock items generated. So I want to bring my revenue from my fact table, and I'm going to choose my stock item. Now, if I bring my stock item, you see that there's quite a bit of products that are sold in this company, and the analysis is not straightforward. It would be great if we could group these stock items by some type of product category as such, right? So maybe I can go to my marketing team or my product management team, sales team, and I can ask them to provide perhaps a grouping of all these items by the main categories that we sell to. So this data set is not available in that SQL database, but perhaps they provided that data in Excel. So what we're going to do is, let's take a look at how that grouping looks and how we're going to import and mash up this data with the rest of our SQL data. As you can see, in this spreadsheet, we have several sheets. Each of them correspond to a category. So we have the list of products in the product group they belong to. So we have clothing, novelty items, packaging materials, and toys. So each one of them are represented by a product ID. So let's take a look how we can import or ingest this data and shape it, and then be able to match it up with the rest of our data. So let's go to Get Data, and we're going to choose Excel, and we're going to choose that product group. So now we can see that we have 4 sheets. We're going to select each one of them, and we're going to load them. So now all the data within those sheets are being loaded, and now we have tables for each one of them. But the goal here is to create a single product group, perhaps, that allows us to slice the data. So for this, we're going to go back to our queries, and we're going to do that by going to our query editor, and that opens up what's known as Power Query Editor. So in here, what I can do is I can grab one of these tables, perhaps, and I can choose the option Append Query as New. So you can do append queries if you want to just append data to an existing query, or create a new query or table out of existing queries. So I'm going to select the second one. So that allows me is to append 3 or more tables. In this case, I already have selected toys. I also want to bring together packaging materials, novelty items, and clothing. So now my 4 tables should be represented as a single table. I'm going to call this my product group. And I can see that now I have the 4 sheets into a single table that I can work with. So now I don't need all these additional reference tables, so I can hide them. So I can clean up my area a little bit more. So now I have my product group. But this data has no relationship still to my rest of my data. So to do that, I go into my relationships view here on the right. And this allows me to see essentially the data model behind the Power BI analysis I have. As you can see, the SQL Server tables already have relationships between them. because Power BI is able to detect those relationships either by the foreign key constraints from SQL Server or by looking at the column names and data types. So in this case, it was able to infer those relationships. Now here we have our 4 tables that are not related to anything, and then our product group, which we just created. So our product ID, the column is called product ID, but it's also synonymous to the stock item ID. So this is my main table, and I'm going to relate this product ID to my stock item ID. And now I should be able to group this by a product group. So in the chart below, instead of selecting stock item, I'm going to select product group. Now I can see an even better type of analysis, right? All my stock items grouped by the different product groups that I was provided by our sales team. And we can do a bunch of analysis now that we have this data. We can do import from the marketplace, a visualization I like to always use, which is called the SAN key chart. Let's see. And it's as easy as adding this into your Power BI visualizations. So I have imported that custom visual. So now I can use it. And I can start adding data to it. So for example, I want to see a relationship between my sales territories to the product groups I'm selling. So I want to know which sales territories are selling my different products the most. You can see these are the relationships, but I can create a weight by, for example, my revenue. Which territories are creating most revenue by product group? So I can highlight and I can see at a glance that the Southeast is creating a lot of revenue, specifically for packaging materials. And one of the lists is perhaps the Mid East or the Southwest with novelty items. So I can see at a glance some of the relationships between sales territory product groups. So this allows me to create much simpler and easy to understand analysis. So with that, let's take a look at deploying our Power BI solution. So I'm going to save this and give it a name, and I'm going to call this demo. And I'm going to click on the publish button. So it's right here. So I'm going to click on publish. And immediately I'm being asked what workspace I want to deploy this to. So I want to deploy this to my Power BI demo workspace. I'll click select. And it's going to deploy this to the Power BI service. So while that is being published, I'll show you how to access your Power BI service. So like I mentioned, if you go to powerbi.com, you can sign in. If you don't have an account, you can create it. But in this case, I already have an account, and it's already logging me in with my current credentials. So this is still publishing, and now it's success. I can click on this icon to see the report, or I can go to Power BI and I can open that workspace, which is called Power BI Demo, and I can see the reports there. So that's my demo report. If I click on demo, I can see the report that I just created, and I have that same interactivity that I had, just like I had in the Power BI desktop, right? So the interactivity is still there, and I'm able to see how this data relates as I click around, right? Now, the last demo I wanted to show is a dashboard. So now that I have this report, I can go back to my workspace and I can create a new dashboard. I can click on the workspace and say new dashboard, and I can call demo dashboard. So now I have a demo dashboard that is empty. What I need to do is go back to my report or reports and pin some of these visualizations. So for example, I'm interested to see this. So I can click on the pin visual. Let me highlight it for you. I click on that pin visual. It's going to ask me if I want to pin this to an existing dashboard or to a new dashboard. In this case, I want it to be pinned to my demo dashboard. I can also, for example, go to this other visual and say, I also want to pin this visualization. I can go to my second page, and I also want to pin this visualization, for example. Now that I have those visualizations pinned, I can go back to my dashboard, and I can see my pin visualizations. So if I'm an executive, I can come to a dashboard that has the visualization that I'm interested on. And if I wanted to dig deeper, I can click on the visualization and it will direct me to the report where it came from. So I can dig a little bit more, do a little bit more analysis, compare my data and derive some insights or some decisions. All right, so with that, I conclude my demonstration for today. Before I hand it over to Jasmine to announce the winners, I wanted to talk about a little bit about the Power BI Ignite offering that we have. This is a hands-on mentorship that serves as interactive training. So you can learn how to implement Power BI in an enterprise. And along with that, you get the mentoring, coaching, and all the best practices and frameworks that we have developed so that you have success and you see value out of the implementation. Today, we're offering a 15% discount for attendees. So if you're interested, just mention that you attended the webinar and you automatically get a 50% discount on this offering. So with that said, I'm gonna turn it over to Jasmine so she can talk about, announce the winners.
Thanks, Jose. And just to kind of piggyback onto what you were saying, Power BI Ignite really is a great first step for any organization who's looking to modernize their reporting and data analytics. So with that, we are going to announce our 3 lucky winners who are going to receive a free 30-minute phone consult with Jose to dive even deeper into Power BI. And the winners are Stacy S., Raj R., and Steve W. Again, Stacy S., Raj R., and Steve W. Congrats to all of you. We will be reaching out to you shortly to get your consult scheduled. And now let's move forward with a little bit of Q&A in the little bit of time that we have left. So we have 3 questions. Let's see how far we get. We may have to reach out to everybody via email to answer some of those questions. The first one is, are the third-party visualizations safe to use in regards to data security?
Yes, so those visualizations that are in the App Store are certified by Microsoft. They don't have any talkback, to the partner or the developer. All of them have been certified, and if you're concerned with security and privacy, I would reach out to Microsoft and make sure that they give you a statement of the security and privacy behind those visualizations.
All right, the next question is, what are some of the platforms that are used to surface Power BI reports? I know that Power BI has a UI to render the reports. However, it would be ideal to render the reports in a dashboard using SharePoint or other vehicle. What do you think clients do, or what is the recommended approach by Microsoft?
Absolutely. So that's a great question. So one of the great features about Power BI is the ability to embed Power BI in many web applications and even desktop applications, but specifically about web applications. So SharePoint has a Power BI web part. It's as easy as enabling the web part in a modern page. It's got to be a modern page, and then linking that to the URL of the Power BI report. Other platforms, for example, Dynamics 365, you can embed it in there. Salesforce, we have done work for a lot of clients embedding Power BI reports within Salesforce. And you can also embed Power BI in any custom .NET application, anything that uses JavaScript, Java, or .NET framework, you can embed Power BI as well.
All right, and I think we have time for one more question. The question is, on the dashboard, can you publish this dashboard to an audience that does not have the Power BI desktop app?
Oh, yes. So the Power BI service does not rely on anybody having the Power BI desktop application on their desktop. Power BI service is essentially software as a service. So it's a self-contained web service, a web portal where you can reach it either through a laptop, web browser, or you can actually also reach those dashboards and reports through the mobile application. So you don't require to have a Power BI desktop. Now, a quick note, there's a licensing consideration because developers need Power BI Pro to share those reports within an organization. But if you're a viewer, you don't need Pro. You just need, you don't need a license for that.
All right. Well, with that, that concludes our presentation today. Thank you, all of you, for attending. We hope that you can walk away with some new knowledge on Power BI and hopefully some actionable to-dos. We're going to send you the webinar recording in case you'd like to reference it or perhaps even share it with your coworkers and friends. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself or Jose via email. We'd be happy to help. Thanks again and have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.